superstars, it's me again. First of all, I hope you're all still fit and well, and your friends and your family. So this is the first question time, if you like. I've selected four big questions from the ones that came in, which I thought covered most of your questions. A little confession. I did make a mistake with my filming on the first session through. I did give you Bolt's world record, but it was the wrong one I was describing. It wasn't Beijing. The one you saw was Berlin when he ran 1919. Again, to underline that, he wasn't satisfied just with having one world record. He was going to put the world record out of sight with his lifetime best performance. So, here's to the first question. Now, Matthew, that's a pretty good question. Thanks very much indeed for that. There was nothing magic about these years, really no magic at all. We were very fortunate, of course, in the first instance, to have some pretty impressive athletes at that point. When I started off back in 1980 with the Olympic Games there in Moscow, we had Seb, we had Steve Ovett, we had Steve Cram. But also around at that point, you had David Moorcroft, who was later to go on to the world record in 5,000 meters, and somebody who was actually coming towards the end of his career at that point, Frank Clement, who'd run in the final of the 1,500 meters back in Montreal. Great athletes, but the really important thing was they had great coaches. Because the athletes that you mentioned, Crammy had Jimmy Hadley, one of the greatest coaches I've ever come across in my life, working from a very basic platform up in the northeast of England. We also had Steve Ovett's coach, Harry Wilson. Harry is a legend, went all the way around the world coaching other coaches to be as good, or try to be as good as he was. And then we had Peter Coe, of course, another legendary coach, personal friend, and an incredible dad, and what he did with Seb was pretty magic. So we had that quality of coaches. But in addition to that, we had a group of coaches at that point, even beyond those three, who were in middle distance and long distance, who were actually doing a lot of talking amongst each other. They were sharing the programs, and in a way that actually hasn't been happening very much, certainly not in the UK athletics, over the last while. I'd like that to continue, the notion of collaboration. The way I see it is this. We are competing with each other, but if we don't cooperate with each other, we'll never take coaching any further forward. I call that co-opetition. It's not my word, it's actually the title of a pretty impressive book. Let me tell you how I think that works and why I believe co-opetition works. When I started off as a Scottish national coach, there were two very powerful women's clubs in Scottish athletics at that point. Edinburgh Southern Harriers, coached by George Sinclair, and Maryhill Harriers, coached by Jimmy Campbell, two incredible coaches themselves. But their objective in life was to make sure that their club had more medals than the other club when it came to the Scottish Championships. Of course, it kind of swapped from one side to the other side. But if you think about it, if that's your benchmark, that's all you're going to be as good as, beating somebody in your country from the other side of the country. So we had a good conversation. Because you see, at that point, when the athletes went down to compete in the English Championship, which were virtually the British Championships, we didn't get very many medals there, and therefore not too many people in the British women's team. I had a good conversation with both coaches, and they both got it. We agreed that instead of simply competing with each other year round, we only competed with each other when it came to the summer, when it came to the season. But in the winter, we'd work together a little bit more often, swap notes, share programs, and see where that got us. Well, in a period of 3 years, it got the best part of 25% in the women's team for Great Britain. So it does work. I was speaking to a young man, Chris, hockey coach from Scotland this morning. And he was saying to me that he thought his coaches and coaches he'd come across were actually sharing information far more readily during this period of crisis and isolation we've got than had been the case in the past. Well, I hope that continues. Maybe that's one of the positive things that will come out of all of this. We'll learn to work closer together, even although sometimes we have to be isolated. So let's look at the second question. Well, thank you for this one, Robert. It's a good question. And I think I'd say to myself then what I'm actually saying to coaches now. And I put the answer, if you like, under 6 C's for different words. The first one is curiosity. Be curious. Be relentlessly curious. Keep looking for more answers. Not one answer, but ask yourself how many answers are there out there. And never, never, never stop learning. The fact is, of course, just as you never arrive in human performance, we never arrive to the limits of what we can learn. Next, clarity. Make sure that your objectives, your goals are crystal clear and agreed by everyone. That means your communication is something we should all look at and make sure that we use the right words at the right time. Next is courage. To take more considered risks in life, to step beyond the edge, not just to accept the way things have been in the past, but to challenge ourselves, to go forward, to take this, and let's say, to have courage, even to have the courage to be straight with people. Don't go around the houses. Say to people exactly what it is that you mean to say to them. That doesn't mean being cruel or being unkind or whatever. But people need to know what you're thinking, because I'd like to believe we're all on the same side in these things. We all want each other to be even better than we are. Next is collaboration. Work together. As I said in the first answer, let's learn that by working together as teams, we can be more effective than working on our own. Now, in an individual sport like track and field athletics, that doesn't sound quite right. But the fact is, we all belong to the one family of coaching, and we all belong to the one purpose of helping young people to be all that they can become. Let's work together far more in that one. Commitment. Be committed to excellence. Not only being committed to excellence in what your athletes achieve, but in how you coach, how you develop people, how you lead, how you manage, how you live your lives. We'll never achieve excellence if we don't aim to achieve excellence. So make sure you have that level of commitment. And finally, choice. We are each defined in life by the quality of our decision making. Practice not only evidence-based decisions, but judgment-based decisions. Trust your gut, because I believe that your life experience teaches you more about how to make right judgments than reading any books. So that's the answer to that one. Let's look to the next question. A great question, Keith. To be honest, I don't think that there is no opportunity out there to put ourselves into competitions and contests where there's an option to win or lose and to fight for that. Now, it might be that we can do so with practical skills and give ourselves self-testing, if you like, or we can actually communicate with colleagues online and have competitions with them. It might be a competition to see who got the best points out of books that we've read or videos that we've viewed that are related to our own continuous professional development. They might be actually power or fitness tests. So I'm aware at the moment that up and down the country there are top sports people who are actually competing with each other. Maybe it might be on a watt bike. Maybe it's the number of press-ups or sit-ups or squats that they do. But they're creating a world of competition and contest that keeps them in touch with what life is all about. Life, as I said before, is about a competition, a series of competitions. Well, let's practice that. Let's use the opportunity to see how we can test ourselves to keep going and to keep improving, whether it's a technical set of skills or whether it's a people set of skills. You know what I'm talking about. You've got the imagination. Sit down, work out a series of tests and competitions, challenge yourself a different test on Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday, because this is going to go on for a while. Let's make the thing work, and let's make it work by learning more in these situations. Great question, Andy, because I've been asked it several times. I think this all starts with understanding that we never arrive. If we're going to be the best in the world, if we're going to be the best in the UK, the best in the city or whatever, in what we do, there's always another step to go. And so that's the start of the whole thing. You're on a journey, a continuing journey. Because after all, what we'd like to think in life is that we'll be serial winners, that we'll have sustainable achievement. But how do you get that? There are two problems out there, and they were identified for me some time ago in a conversation with the legendary Alex Ferguson. Alex said, the two big things you've got to be in control of is what happens when you lose and what happens when you win. So defeat and success both bring problems. Defeat sounds pretty straightforward, doesn't it? I mean, if things haven't gone well, you sit back, you work out what you could have done better, what you could have done differently, and you come up with a solution, you keep working at it, and you know you'll be back up in no time. The thing to remember about defeat is it's like, as a long time ago, I used to chat to my daughters when things went not quite up to plan, and I would say to them, you don't fail in life when you fall off your bike. You fail in life when you don't get back on your bike and pedal even harder. And I think that's how you handle the failure points, because you'd better deal with these if you want to be a sustainable winner. So what about the other side of things? Well, I was brought up to believe that success breeds success. But I was introduced by a mate of mine, Bob Reeves, to a chap called Rod Eddington, and Rod came out with a line that at first I just thought was wrong, but I now know it's dead right. When he said, success can derail progress. Why? Because if you're not careful, you begin to believe that that's the solution to life. You've had a big win, you don't have to do anything other than keep going, because if that's a winning formula, why change it? But the world changes in front of you all the time. You've got to be willing to adjust, change, and keep on moving. When you are successful in life, you obviously celebrate it, but you look as quickly as possible to what, again, you could have done better or could have done differently, because that keeps you on track to be a sustainable winner. So complacency can be the curse of success, and quitting can be the curse of losing. Let's use defeat and success to make us even better. So I hope you've enjoyed these two sessions this week, but please let me leave you with a question of my own, or if you like, a challenge. I'd like you to identify one thing that you've picked out of the sessions this week that you believe you can work on to be a serial winner yourself. And if you like, share it below. I'm really looking forward to speaking to you again next week, when the theme next week is going to be, if you don't know where you're going, how do you plan the journey? Have a great weekend.
Always believe in your soul.